The New American welcomes Vicky Davis, former computer systems analyst and programmer, currently an internet researcher and writer. You know her from the technocratictyranny.com and channelingreality.com. She's the co-host of Govern America with Darren Weeks. It's a radio program that airs every Saturday between 10 to 1 p.m. Central Time. So I'd like to welcome Vicky on, and I would like to assure the audience that she's here, even though she's only here in the audio format. So welcome, Vicky.
Hi, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I wanted to have you on because you had an article. Somebody was telling me about you, and especially your channeling reality website, and they were like, "You have to check out, this person's content." And so I went on and I was just reading a bunch of the articles, and some of them, were older articles. One of them that jumped out at me that I kind of wanted to talk to you about was AIG, the insurance company. And a few years ago, you had an article about AIG's war against America, and I kind of wanted to, gain your insights regarding that.
hmm Yeah, after you contacted me, I went back and I reread all of the AIG material that I have. And studying AIG is really getting to the heart of what's wrong in our financial systems. The AIG's downfall that led to our financial crisis was due to the banking deregulation that occurred in the 1990s with Bill Clinton. The
Mhm.
Clinton administration came into power. Well, you know about the Bush administration and the New World Order and all of that. Well, Bush wasn't in office long enough to really carry it out, but the Clinton administration is where that really got started. The redefinition of government into a technocratic system. And one of the things that they did was to deregulate our banking system. And Clinton appointed a guy named Eugene Ludwig to be the comptroller of the currency. And a woman from San Francisco was appointed to be a lawyer within HUD. And
Mhm.
what Ludwig did, he was the one that was behind the ending of Glass-Steagall.
Mhm.
They required banks to begin financing. They blamed racism for banks not lending in urban areas. And so they basically threatened the banks. He threatened the banks with loss of their charter if they didn't lend. Okay, so what Ludwig did was that he allowed the banks to set up subsidiary operations to assume the risk because they put the banks in an untenable situation. A bank has to be secure financially. They can't have risky assets on their books and still be insured by the FDIC. So
Can
they
I
created
jump in
a
here for a second, Vicky?
sure.
Just to tell the audience really quick in case they're not sure what Glass-Steagall was. Glass-Steagall was basically after 1929 and the Great Depression, people lost confidence in the banking system because the banks basically were covering their losses by taking their depositors' money. So what Glass-Steagall did was it created a firewall between commercial banks where people deposit their money, normal people, and investment banks that do risky speculative things like derivatives and stuff like that. And so for decades, we had Glass-Steagall and we had a thriving, prosperous economy. And then under Bill Clinton, he basically took a lot of the teeth out of Glass-Steagall. And then now investment banks could come in by commercial banks, and you saw a bunch of banking consolidations. You saw, like Citigroup and Bank of America, all these large organizations gobbled up a bunch of smaller banks, and it created too big to fail. David Stockman wrote a great book about that called The Great Deformation. But go ahead, Vicky. Sorry, I just wanted to throw that in for the audience.
Okay, no, that's good that you did that. But they allowed banks to then get into the insurance and securities market.
Mhm.
And AIG had a unit that I think it was called the Financial Products Unit. I can't quite remember the exact name of it, but I believe that was the unit that got involved with these risky products. And the deregulation of the banks and allowing banks to get involved on Wall Street is what created the situation that ultimately led to AIG, an insurance company, insuring the risks that were taken in the subprime market. And they ever talked about was home loans in terms of subprime. But I do believe that they were also involved in business, in
Mhm,
subprime business lending.
mhm,
And it was all to correct what they considered to be the systemic racism in the banking and financial industry. Okay,
yeah,
so all of this lending, like the company Countrywide, they were the ones that wrote so many of those subprime loans, and it was AIG that was insuring the risk on those loans. And
mhm,
so, naturally, if you loan money to people that don't have good jobs, don't have good credit history, they're not going to be able to pay back the loan. So, I mean, the guaranteed win was to bet against those loans. And that's what I guess some of the Wall Street firms did. But it wasn't just that. Also, in the deregulation with AIG, they also
mhm.
got involved with the Medellin drug cartel. And I
Well,
just found that this morning, you know,
Well,
and
this is one of the things. Yeah, HSBC, right, got caught laundering drug money. Like all the big banks, basically were implicated in that. Hundreds of billions, perhaps trillions of dollars going through. I just wanted to make one point just real quick as a historical kind of data point. It might be of interest to the audience. I did a video a while back on AIG and how it morphed into the CIA. And so most people aren't aware of that. That AIG, basically, AIG was started by a guy named Cornelius Vander Starr in Shanghai. And why was he in Shanghai? Because Shanghai was one of the big drug hubs since the British took over China. And so all these narcotics were flowing through the Boxer Rebellion, Treaty of Nanking, 1842, et cetera. So all these people were coming in and out of China doing these things. So Vander Starr was actually in Shanghai. And there was a really interesting article in the LA Times called Secret Insurance Agents. And it says, if I may, just for a second, just read from the article, because they knew which factories to burn, which bridges to blow up, which cargo ships could be sunk in good conscience. They had pothole counts for roads used for invasion and head counts for city blocks marked for incineration. They weren't just secret agents, they were secret insurance agents. These undercover underwriters gave their World War II spy masters access to a global industry that both bankrolled and ultimately helped bring down Adolf Hitler's Third Reich. Newly declassified U.S. intelligence files tell the remarkable story of the ultra secret Insurance Intelligence Unit, a component of the Office of Strategic Services, a forerunner of the CIA, and the elite counterintelligence branch, X2. And so what they did was they brought Cornelius Vander Starr. That quote, by the way, is on Cornelius Vander Starr's Wikipedia page. And so he was one of the early people running the O.S.S, which would later morph into AIG. And so you see a lot of just skeevy kind of insurance fraud things that the CIA has been engaged in, from narcotics, from their infancy, which led into Air America, the Iran Contra thing with narco trafficking and stuff, through insurance scams, just straight up insurance scams. Like, for instance, Cornelius Vander Starr's second in command, when he died, he passed on control to a guy named Maurice Greenberg. And Maurice Greenberg was the guy who gave insurance to Lucky Larry Silverstein on 9/11, who insured him against terrorism. So you see AIG doing all these skeevy things. And so I just wanted to let the audience kind of know about that. So I'm sorry I interrupted you,
yeah,
Vicky.
no, that's great history. And the supply chain warfare. I mean, that's exactly what's happened to our country is supply chain warfare. They broke up our large corporations, and I'm not sure why this happened. It may be because during the 1980s, what was the name of the guy of Drexel Burnham? He was going after big pots of money, corporations that had a lot of money, that if you bought the company and broke it up, the company was worth more broken up than it was as a major corporation. And that was Drexel Burnham that was doing that, and I forgot where I was going with that.
Well,
But
I kind of,
with
oh,
our
okay, no,
the
continue.
the breaking up of our large companies into subsidiaries allowed them to basically offload risk, like the pharmaceutical corporations. They could do risky development of new drugs, for like the Human Genome Project, without assuming the risk of their major corporation. And so that began the breaking up of our large corporations. And they also always say that the propaganda says that the heart of our economy, the backbone of our economy, is small businesses. Well, that was not true. If you've got a small business and you've got a payroll, even if your payroll is $10,000 a month, that's not the same thing as a big corporation whose payroll in a particular area is, say, $500,000 or $1 million a month. So um, small businesses are only good in some functions. They're not good for a foundation of an economy. Corporations, you've got entire towns that became basically ghost towns in
Like
terms of
Kodak with
economic.
Rochester, New York, right? As Kodak falls
Yeah,
apart.
yeah.
But yeah, one of the things I kind of I did a report on pandemic bonds, and so as we leave a real economy that's based on productivity and making things, and we go into the scam economy of insurance products, and you get a lot of insurance fraud, as we kind of were talking about before. I was looking at these pandemic bonds, which were invented in 2017, so very, very recently. Excuse me, they called them catastrophe bonds in 2017. In 2018, they created the pandemic bond, and then 2019, within months, they create, this global pandemic is declared, and money changes hands based on these bonds. And so, one of the things that struck me as curious during the shutdown was all the corporations who went along with these shutdowns. And you'd think in a logical capitalistic system, they wouldn't want to shut down. And they definitely wouldn't be financing organizations that are burning and looting their stores, but that's exactly what we saw. And I was just struck dumb by that until somebody pointed out in watching my video on pandemic bonds, that the Wimbledon corporation, took out insurance before COVID, almost as if they had had foreknowledge, and they took out insurance that if anything happened to disrupt tennis, that they would get like a big payout. So when you look at what had happened, like why all these corporations were so willing to just kind of go with lockdowns and shutdowns and all these things, you can't dismiss the possibility of massive kind of insurance fraud, that the Chamber of Commerce kind of brings these companies together, tells them what the blueprint is going ahead, and they all just coincidentally get these insurance products and make out like bandits, without having to work, and of course it's all defrayed by the taxpayer and by pension funds, firefighter pension funds, police officer pension funds, teachers union pension funds. These were the people buying these bonds. And if one of these pandemics was declared, all that money is transferred to the bank, who then pays out on them. So it's a transfer from the working class to the kind of corporate class, the crony capitalist class. So,
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. And it's when they deregulated the market, so that you can bet in a positive way, either building equity, or you can buy securities in a negative way to destroy equity. It's an either way, and so you're right about how they could cover their risk and support a shutdown that in a normal world would hurt them.
yeah,
Yeah, we
so we're
really.
we're in this synthetic economy now. It's it's really unprecedented so far as I can discern.
Yeah, I think so. But it all you can go back in history and follow it forward, and you see what they did. And I wish more people would do that. Because if you don't understand where we started, you can't understand where we are now.
I'm reading a book called "The Pawns in the Game" or something by a gentleman named William Guy Carr, somebody a poster of one of my videos kind of recommended it, so I'm reading it now. And one of the themes that's kind of persistent before revolutions is it starts with Oliver Cromwell's English Revolution in the 1600s, and it goes to the French Revolution, then it goes to the Russian Revolution, and the methodologies are all very similar. And one of the methodologies is you release the criminals and the psychopaths, and you have them attack the population. Another is that you break up supply chains and you sabotage communications. In today's terms, you would say, "Oh, Russian hackers took down this, this infrastructure." But it's extremely similar. And one of the things that they do is they kind of take down the economy so that people are in a very vulnerable position. They're starving, they're hungry, and they look to whoever's going to provide them the solution. And so it is kind of par for the course when you kind of look historically, in those terms, why they would be sabotaging our real economy in favor of this fake paper economy.
Uh-huh. Well, yeah, and it's all part of taking down the Westphalian system of nation states and moving to a system of global governance by continent. And anybody who wants to understand that, you should look at the electric grid. Now, if hackers are a real problem, why would you be putting this computerized layer over the top of our electric grid that could bring it down? It would seem like you would want to decouple your system and prepare to run the system manually. But that's not what they're doing. That's not what they did at all. They continue to build the smart grid, making us vulnerable to an entire shutdown. And it's insane. So when you look at the contradictions like that between what they say and what they do, then then you understand that what they're telling you is not the real objective, and that we are in a lot more trouble than most people realize, I think.
Yeah, exactly. They're not fortifying our system. They're kind of enfeebling it. And
Yes.
kind of like the Ottoman Empire. They called it the sick man of Europe, and they're trying to do that with the entire West. They're trying to make it, the sick man of the planet, so that they can kind of loot it and plunder it and change take its resources to East Asia, where they want to have a base of operations there to create their global grid. So it all makes sense. So with that, I just wanted to thank Vicky Davis for coming on, and I wanted to direct the viewers to check out her great website, Channeling Reality. That's where I was, kind of losing myself in all of this great content that she has, or the Technocratic Tyranny, or you can check her out with Darren Weeks on her show, Govern America. Just to reiterate, every Saturday between 10 to 1 p.m. Central Time. So thanks for coming on, Vicky, and you were awesome, and I hope we can get you on again soon.
Well, thank you, Daniel. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate the having me on. Thanks.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much.